Yo, in Next.js, you can easily import a client component into a server component. But if you try that the other way, things will break. But there's one trick, one mental model, also called the donut pattern or the hole in the donut, that makes it possible using server components inside of client components. So I have this very simple component here. It's just a product list. Really just looks like that. But now I have a button here, a toggle compact button, and this button should actually change the server-side list we have down here. But if I click, nothing happens. So in the source code, we see we have this button here, which says toggle compact, but it is not doing anything. It's missing an on-click listener. The whole thing here is a server component because we're basically fetching products here and showing these products in the list. So potentially we could do something like this, right? We take a look at what needs to be client-side and put it in a separate component, and then we make this component a client component. But this doesn't work in this scenario because, okay, cool, I'm setting is compact in a state, but what is happening with state? Like, we are in an isolated client component here. We can't do anything with it. So in the next version here, we have our state actually in our component. So we made it a client component. But the problem is here, what you're seeing here is just not allowed. It is not allowed in Next.js at all. Like, if you try to go on this page, it tells us it's an async client component and only server components can be async at the moment, but that's just what we have to deal with. So code like this is just not allowed. You can't mix client and server like that. So why not just doing something like this? Why not saying, okay, this is a client component, and then I'm just taking whatever needs to be server-side and put it in a server-side component like this product list. It has no use client on top. So we're basically importing a server component into a client component. Is this working? It's sadly not, because product list is an async client component. So just because of the fact that we're importing this product list in a component that is saying use client means this component gets a client component. And I will quickly explain you why this is not possible, but let's hear a quick word of today's sponsor. You are a Next.js developer. I know that because you're watching this video. And we Next.js developers need to stay up to date. Things are changing quickly. The community is moving fast. So you not only have to subscribe to this channel, but also to Next.js Weekly to stay up to date on Next.js. It's for real the best newsletter out there for Next.js. One weekly email right into your inbox, no spam, you can easily unsubscribe, and you just get a lot of news and informations all around the ecosystem around Next.js. Click the first link in the description to get directly here, or visit tobymae.dev/nextjsweekly. Thanks to Efron for sponsoring this video. Okay, so here we are. Why can we not import a server component into a client component? So we have the client and the server. I'm not going back to like university stuff, but we have the client, the server, and yeah, they talk to each other. So if we want to stay on the client, we say use client. And if we want to be on the server, we don't say use server. We just say nothing. That's how it works in Next.js, because the default is server, and use server is actually for server actions. So here we now have the possibility chart. I know it's beautiful. Like, if we use a server component, the server component renders on the server and then gets sent to the client. If we use a client component, it's not getting rendered on the server, so it gets sent to the client, and on the client it renders. And now if we have a client component inside a server component, the server component renders on the server, because that's how it works, but the client component actually renders on the client. And now we have the interesting thing. Let's imagine we have a client component which imports a server component. The client component can't render on the server because it's a client component, and that said, the server component also can't render on the server because it gets used in the client component, which just runs on the client. So it gets sent to the client component renders, and then the server component renders, because the server component is now a client component. That's just how it works. And that all fails if the server component is doing server stuff. So if it's async, if it's fetching data, if it's accessing libraries that only can be accessed on the server, things will fail. But I already said it, there is a solution for that called the donut pattern. And ladies and gentlemen, here you go. You waited for it the whole time. This is the donut pattern. We have a client shell and we have the product list. Let's start simple. This is just our product list, a server component doing server-side stuff like fetching data. Now this is fine because this component is not a client component. It's also a server component. That's why it's not a problem to import a server component here. And of course, we can import this client shell, which is a client component. So in this client shell, we have our default setup, but we also have these children here. So we pass children and use the children wherever we want to place the server content. So the server stuff renders on the server and just gets put into the hole, the donut hole. Like, this is the donut here, where the client shell is the donut ring, and you probably saw it on the thumbnail, and the product list is the middle, the hole of the donut. And with that beautiful setup, we achieve exactly what we want. The toggle compact button is working. And yes, this is client-side and this is server-side, but the donor pattern helps us making this possible. And yeah, this pattern is pretty relevant because we don't want to bring everything on the client side because that hurts, because the server is the clear winner, especially in Next.js. Like, we have better search engine optimization, we have a smaller bundle, and it's just better for slow devices or slow networks. That's just a fact. And there are a bunch of more things. So please avoid the client whenever possible and go for server-side rendering. So don't put use client everywhere, and then don't go into the use effect hell where you then fetch your data in the use effect. And actually this donor pattern is something you already use in your day-to-day life. Like, for example, when you use modals. Modals is a perfect example of this pattern. Like, you have the modal where you have the state if it's opened or closed, which is client-side, but whatever is inside the modal doesn't need to be client-side. Or here in my layout tsx, for example, I have this theme provider, which is actually also using the donor pattern, right? It is wrapping and I can pass my children or whatever I want inside. But the theme provider itself is client-side. I hope you really enjoyed this small deep dive into the donor pattern. If you want more about Next.js, this channel is exactly what you need. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye bye.